So when 90% of SEO was black hat, so you can imagine that I was unfortunately part of the group. So I'm a reformed black hat SEO. If you Google my name, you'll see a site about Meet Innovators. You'll hear a little bit about my story, my backstory about ranking in the first page of Google for competitive terms. So my background as an affiliate marketer led me to be really, I take SEO from a different approach. I'm more looking at it as from the performance perspective, because I've come from an affiliate background. So I'm always looking at what are the things that move the needle. So I'm not super, I love the technical side of things, the, stuff that get me excited because I'm a tech guy. But it only makes me, really excited if it actually is technically interesting, but it also makes a difference in terms of driving revenue, right? So yes, that's kind of like the background. So the backstory on my company, in Dominican, I try to launch a software company. As a tech guy, it's always been my passion to build software.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that failed. And I saw that as an opportunity because one of the things that I saw that limited my ability to make that a success was that I was based in Dominican Republic. So that's one of the motivations to move here and fill in the other gaps that I was missing to make it a success. And so far, based on the feedback that we're getting so far, it sounds like we're in the right track right now. So excited about it to share a little bit about what we're working on.
Cool. Do you want to let's dive into the tool probably at the end, depending on how much time we have left? Does that work for you?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. So the thing that really caught my eye when I read your article is that Jordan and I were experimenting with Google's indexing API, and we built a cool tool, and we quickly came to realize that it only works for two types of content. It's only going to work for live stream and jobs. And Google's super clear about that. They tell you what to expect. They say it doesn't work for any other types of content. But so we were frustrated. And then when I saw your article, I was like, oh man, that is so cool. We got to get him on the show to talk about this. So do you want to share your screen and dive in a little bit to it and maybe talk about, when we went over it yesterday, a couple things that you wanted to go over, I think, were installation, operation, just to kind of take us through it so that people can see how to play with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. So I think I need to stop sharing, and then you can start. Actually, I'm not sharing. So can you hit, sorry. Try it now.
Yeah, so let me...
Give me one.
Yeah, that's so too. Okay. Sure. Can you see my screen?
Sure can.
Yeah. So basically, it is an open source tool, right? So you have the link here. The backstory is an article that I published on Search Engine Journal. I think that's the one that you saw. See if I have the link here. It's the latest one that I published. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm taking the URL inspector in Google Search Console and I'm automating that. So it looks like there is a new vulnerability, some interesting stuff I'm learning with this open source idea. So in summary, you have the URL inspector in Search Console, and you don't have an API to be able to automate it, right? So you don't have this API that you can pull data. You can use the Google Search Console API to extract keywords, performance data from URLs, pages. You have a few other options, but you don't have this API to pull to be able to interact with the URL inspector. as I have an engineering background, I can figure out all the ways that you can go around that. And one of the ways that we do is with the automating the Chrome browser, right? So and let me explain the steps. So if you go to my open source repository, right, you can download, clone, download the file. I had to do it on this computer. I haven't tested it on this one. I forgot my laptop.
Okay.
This meeting, so it might be some things might not working right away. But basically, you download it, which is what I did on this computer. You can create a new development directory. Make sure that this is big enough so you can read it. You can see it. You see, so I downloaded the zip file. And once you unzip it, and there's going to be the files, the same files that you have on the repository, right? Open source, and you have all the information. So before you launch the tool, you need to make sure that you install the dependencies, the libraries that the tool needs to run, and that is included in the file requirements txt. So when I try to run it, I face a challenge because there was a library that wasn't really required, Conda, which I just deleted it and updated it. So if you tried it and you face the error, now it should be able to work.
Okay.
So basically, you have to install Python 3. Okay. So the first requirement is you have to install it. I've only tested it on Mac, so I might need some changes for your computer. So here's an article about how to install Python on your computer, right? Make sure the Python installation is there. There is an option which is the Conda installation, makes it simpler. Okay. After you install Python, you run this script which is called pip3 or pip install and -r requirements. Okay. And you run this. I already run it, so it's gonna be. Let me see why. Oh, pip. I just have to run pip in my computer and this one.
Because you had already updated to
Python
3?
I used the wrong. But you see, it's already satisfied because I already run this script.
Cool.
Right. So once you do this, you have everything you need to run the script. Right. So now the script is an interesting combination of Python, JavaScript, and Jinja 3. Right. But I have the script. Now to run it, I just do write Python in this directory and URL inspector automator.py. That's it. You run it. Okay. And then that's the tool. Right. Super simple. You run and you. So let me explain what you're seeing on this interface. So here is where the script will save the password of when you launch the tool into Google Search Console. So I click on Launch Chrome in debug mode. So let me show you what it's doing because it's showing you that you're going to be a few screens. But basically what it did is it launched the Search Console. It launched the browser and opened the Search Console page. It was able to log into Search Console because I have already manually saved the user. But when you do it the first time, you have to manually log into your Search Console, put the user password, save it, and it's going to save it not anywhere else but in your computer. And it's going to be in this directory. This directory is a custom Chrome profile. So basically, because I use Chrome for my own usage, I don't want this stuff to mess up with my regular Chrome. So I create a separate profile so that Chrome will save the password there.
Got it.
Right. And so you see, so I'm using Chrome for other stuff. So you can see what the script is doing in the console here. So you see it says selectors loaded. I'm going to explain what that is.
Yep.
Launch Chrome. and this is the parameters that we pass to Chrome. That you're gonna, in the article that I wrote for Search Engine Journal, you'll know what this mean, right? It's opening Chrome in the debug mode, which allows us to manipulate Chrome, right? And it's passing the directory. So the trick that the script does in order to be able to connect to Chrome with Chrome is that I save, when we launch Chrome, I save the output from the Chrome, from that Chrome spits out into a TXT file, and then in the app I read this file to read the URL. You understand? So I read this is the URL that allows the app to connect to Chrome, which it will populate it dynamically here. So you see it's connected, right? So the app, you have, let me explain a few other features. Do you guys have any questions so far in what
I just want to say, just in case, because we went in deep very quickly. Like, the real benefit of this is that you don't have to manually sit there and watch the tool run, wait for it to inspect a URL, give you feedback, and then give you an option to submit it to Google. This tool automates that process, and it basically allows you to not have to babysit the tool as it runs 30 seconds to a minute for each individual URL that you want to submit. And that's the crazy cool part of it. Do you want to put some URLs in and we'll test it?
Yeah, absolutely. So
is that how you think of it too?
That's exactly right. And my idea with this is, and the reason why I'm sharing this is, I really want you guys to get involved and figure out all the things you can use it for, fix problems, file bugs, and see all the things. I want you to be using it. I want you to face problems, open tickets, open issues that you have, and I'll be happy to help you. But I want this to be a community effort. And this is just one use case of this capability of being able to automate the Chrome browser. But any task that you can do in a Chrome browser, you can automate with the same approach. And this is kind of like a proof of concept of what you can do when you automate the browser. I mean, just when we had this pre-call, Noah, you gave me a great idea. Said, hey, what if we can, instead of having to manually input the URLs like we're going to do now, what if we pass them as a URL, a CSV file? So if you output those URLs for a third-party tool that you're using, right? What if we can, pass them on from the tool and don't even have to interact with the interface? And that's something that is very easy to do. I didn't have time to do it, but that's something I'll put the time to just pass a configuration parameter, upload the tool, and run it. I think there is somebody asking in the chat. You see that?
Yeah. So Renee's asking, does it work for all URLs, or do they have to be indexed already?
No, the idea is that it should be. This will tell you if the URLs are not indexed.
Yeah, right? And that drop down in the top right is like the money drop down, the do nothing, where it says
Exactly. Yeah. So that's exactly. So yeah. So Renee, the idea here is that you will have a list of URLs. You don't know whether they're indexed or not, and the tool will tell you if there's indexed or not. And let me explain some of the other functionality is that this pull down that is hidden, as you're saying, is that by default you said, okay, I only want to know if they're indexed or not. But you can say, well, if they're not indexed, what do you want to do with them? Do you want to test them live, or you want to submit them? Right? You want to do the test live or the submission. And here we add what criteria the tool will use to determine if the page is indexed or not. And this is the default criteria that we're using. And some of the things that I'm thinking to improve is that I want to add more than one criteria, not just we use one, because this is for testing purposes, right? And after we run it, the tool will also populate a table with all the information that we're collecting, and you can export that information, right? So that's the idea. So let me run.
And the other thing that we have to mention, which is sort of like just Google Search Console 101 is all of these URLs have to be inside the property that you have live.
You have to have control over you have to have control over the property. Exactly. Because one of the things that the tool does is you can list URLs from different domains, but all of them, they have to be in the same property. And and the tool will essentially change. Let me see, why do I have to? Let me close one of them. Make sure I didn't close it. Right, so let's give it a try. See if it's doing the work. So look at that. This is saying that it's resetting the home to rank sense, right? Look how it's running the inspection, right? I mean, look at this. It's a beautiful thing. Look at the output, extracting the information, right? This is live. And look at that. Now it's running the second URL, right? And pull the information. Boom, done. That's it. Pretty cool. As simple as that.
Very cool. Now, Hamlet, I know Noah has has actually uploaded Screaming Frog into the cloud. So I'm curious. Have you ever tried uploading this into the cloud where it can run on a continuous basis, or have you only tried it within your local environment?
Yeah, it's not. You can run it on anywhere, but let me warn you that there is a quota of how many pages you can check. So it's not something that you can, I'm going to check a million URLs. I'm going to check 1,000 URLs. First of all, you're logged into your Search Console account, and Google limits. They have a daily limit per property, because while I was testing this, I obviously hit it, right? So when I was testing, I actually had to change from my website to clients to be able to test some of this stuff, because I ran out of my quota for RankSense. So I don't know if it's going to be something that is going to be practical to be running it on a cloud, because it's not something you're going to be checking a bunch of. Because even if you say, okay, I'm going to launch a bunch of instances, it's per property. The quota is per property. So they reset it on a daily basis. So I think this is more of, do you have a set of pages that are money pages, right? You have products that you don't know that these are bestsellers. You see the indexing ratio. You see that you're missing 50 of them. You don't know which one they are. Run it through the tool. You understand? Instead of manually typing them one at a time, you understand? You can actually go in and make the change, right? But let me show you this, right? So I ran the test on these two tools, on these two URLs, and look at the results, right? Now, put in the results here. You understand? The URL, inspect it, you get all the information, and then you can also export it, right? And you do the export, and you have it, right?
Now, Hamlet, when you were hitting those caps, what were they per day?
I don't know. If I were to guess, because I was not tracking them, I'd probably spend some time to track them and know how much they are. Sorry, but I think probably 500, very similar to probably what you had before when you do the fetch and some, the fetch and render. The fetch and render, and submit to index had a cap before. So I probably think that they have the same thing.
I just quoted 200 to 500 because the indexing API had that as a daily threshold. I think was that 200 number.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's the idea. So let me show you with a URL that is not indexed, right? Let me try to find one. So I can go to the coverage and look for a page excluded.
It's pretty interesting how much content you have hidden.
Yeah, that's a good one. So let me try with this one that is supposed to be excluded because it has an alternate canonical tag. So let me add this one to the list, right? And let me show you what it does. So by default, do nothing. But I said, okay, I don't want you to do nothing. If it's not indexed, I want you to test it live, which is, I could do the test live or I could do a submit, right? And let's rerun this, right? Okay, see if it works. Okay, so you see it's inspecting. Okay, not index. Okay, you see, it's gonna do a test live. You see testing live automatically. It's beautiful, right? You see, waiting 80 seconds now because, you know, this takes a little bit more time by default. But now, because it met the criteria that we defined, right, of the page is not indexed, do this, right? And as I said, this is just a proof of concept. It only took me a few days to put it together after we could, you know, and I'm just showing you this so you see how much powerful, how powerful this stuff is. In a sense, you don't have to be a ninja to be able to do this stuff. Just waiting for this. Still have to wait for the 80 seconds to lapse. I might be able to figure out a better way, or somebody can figure out a way that we don't have to wait for the timer. An expert on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, she's just primarily a proof of concept.
Oh my goodness.
Right. To show you this. Right. And as I said, you know, I hadn't installed the tool on this computer. I just download it. Right.
That's
what is that?
Annoying. Whew. Sorry, guys. Whew.
No worries. So you see, now it's finishing the other 2 pages. You see, so it finished waiting for that live test. It's going to run the other 2 that we had done in the past, in the first run. But you see, very simple, very straightforward to download it, install it. I want to spend a little bit of time of give you some ideas of how you can extend it, because that's why my primary goal is not just to show you what I've done. You see, look what the tool did. It added the URL that was not indexed because it met the criteria that we specify here. So it added it here, and you know, it run the test that you asked for, and you see
Can
the
you
results.
get it to post the result of each one to a webhook?
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. That's what I want you. I want to show you how you could do that. Right?
You're like me, no man.
I want you. I want you to do that stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the idea, right?
Yeah.
So you see, the tool does what is advertising to do, right? Give the list of URLs, push it to the search, to the indexing API, put a criteria of which type of pages you want to consider not indexed, and what you want the tool to do if they're not indexed, sorry, they're motion activated. And you do if you want to submit it, you want to test it. Simple, very simple. And now let me show you that you'll think, oh, that's a lot. That's going to take months to put it together. It's a lot of work, blah, blah, blah. Not even close. Let me show you, right, how many lines of code this has. Very small amount of code. So do you see my screen? I'm not sure if you see that. So first of all, I see more people asking questions in the chat. Make sure that you're checking them.
Yep.
And yeah, that's a demonstration of the tool. Not sure if there is any other questions related to it.
I just they were asking where to download it. One of the things
make sure that you.
I just added the link from GitHub for them.
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll also be sending this out after this chat as well.
Yeah. but I wanted to show how powerful and simple it is. I want to spend some time. It's just that I've been super crazy busy. I want to spend some time to create installers for Mac, Windows, stuff like that. I will spend some time on that, but I just haven't had the time. You see, I haven't touched it in 4 days since I released it. Generally have time during the weekends to do coding. Yeah, you were going to say that you noticed what? I'm sorry?
When I went into Search Engine Journal, I think everybody, it's worth your time to jump in there so that you can see he released all, and if you don't do a ton of Python, but you're like trying to figure out if you should get into it, I think he released like 3 or 4 articles on the same day, and they talk about, or Hamlet talks about, how to get started with Python, how to build out files, how to define all your dependencies into requirements. And it's interesting how you built this tool exactly like the way that you said how to do it.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't the same day. I'm writing a monthly column, for, Search Engine Journal. I also write for Search Engine Watch. I had an article come out today, and I'm just working on my article for this month for Search Engine Land, which is going to be using the SEMrush API. It's going to be really interesting. So yeah, this is, I'm just showing you that this is accessible. This is not just, you can solve your problems in more creative ways, more efficiently, faster. And I mean, think about it. You start showing your boss that you're doing this stuff. I mean, your raise is going to come really quickly because this is amazing stuff you can put together. So look at this. How many lines of code, right? 132 lines of code. And that's with a bunch of comments, because sometimes I try different ways to approach things and I comment it out when they don't work. So I say, okay, I might figure out a different way. 132 lines of code. That's the code that manipulates the browser, connects to the browser, inspects URLs, resets the home page and this is executing the action that you want, right? So it might seem intimidating a little bit, but you can spend an afternoon or 2 to learn Python, learn what this language is. But this is so accessible and so simple. I'm not saying that it's not frustrating. I'm not sugarcoated, but the way, if you like playing games, if you have played, video games in the past, it feels like kind of like the same way when you have to struggle developing skills, but when you gain them, it gives you superpowers, and then the games becomes a lot easier. It's very similar, experience that you get when you start playing with this stuff. So very few lines of code here. This is the code that manipulates the interface. You understand? So I'm using a library called PyQt for people that are Python but are used to the command line. This is also very simple. Look at how many lines of code here. 274. And a lot of it is repetitive stuff. It's just building up the interface and interacting with the interface primarily. So, through very accessible, and yeah, it's not really difficult. And let me tell you, the other thing is that the interface, I use an editor called PyQt editor. I think Qt editor or something around that is. I don't have it installed on this computer, but basically you visually see this same thing that I'm seeing on the app. I see it visually, and I drag and drop the elements that I want to have in the interface. So it's super simple. It generates this file. Let me see where the file is. Oh, this UI.
Is Puppeteer Python's version of Puppeteer?
Yes.
Cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the interface file. This is generated by an editor with a drag and drop editor. So I put that together, right? Now the more interesting things is that I'm combining JavaScript and Python to be able to automate the browser, right? So I'm injecting JavaScript into the browser to take the actions, the extraction or the clicking, right? So this is the clicker. This is an example JavaScript that does the clicking. And let me tell you that I know very little of JavaScript. I actually have to Google and learn a little bit about JavaScript, the difference between Python to be able to do this stuff. So, but it made a lot more sense to use JavaScript because I'm interacting within the document, the DOM,
Yeah.
the DOM object. So this is an example script function that will perform the clicks. You know, find the test live element and click it. Find the request indexing element and click it. And that's it. I'm just driving it based on passing an action, right? Now, this part, you know, a beginner would not be able to figure it out because I had to figure out how to address elements in the HTML, but without using class IDs or element IDs, because if the HTML changes, then the app will be breaking all the time. And that's where you see I launched this. After a few days, even if Google made a lot of changes to the HTML, I was still able to work. And the trick that I use here is that I'm not using the IDs, which I had to use in the article for Search Engine Journal because I wanted to keep it simple. I was just, you can copy and paste using the browser. You can copy the selectors to make it simple, to make it easy to understand. But to make an app that wouldn't be breaking every time you use it, or that you have to go and edit the selectors all the time, I had to make it more resistant, more robust. So in order to do that, instead of looking at the IDs of the HTML elements, I'm looking at the copy of the content of the element. I'm saying, okay, this is unlikely to change often because it's how the content is described. It is a description of the element. So I'm using the visual description of the element as the anchor that I'm using to find what I want to find. Now, you know, that's a capability that is not supported by default in the Chrome selectors. So I had to use XPath, which is also not natively supported. So I had to create this wrapper function to be able to create this capability of adding XPath to my script. Now with XPath, I can find.
I want to stop for 1 second. Hamlet, pause.
Sure.
We're diving in super deep, which is so badass.
Yeah, sorry, I get too excited. Sorry about that.
But no. Stay where you were.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I think that people need to know is that the theme that I've taken away from watching you speak and reading stuff that you've put out is that you tend to gravitate towards Occam's razor solutions as often as possible. And you go as simple as possible to get to the end outcome that you're trying to get all the time. And you make things simple versus hard, which is really fascinating.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I know it's like, I'm saying that as we're looking at something really complex to some people, but I love that you try and keep it simple.
Yeah, because it's it's simple, because my goal is to get all the people to get involved, right? So if I make it too complicated and something that you have to have a PhD to be able to do it, right? Nobody's going to do it. So that's what I want to make sure that it's super simple, right? But what I'm saying is that even though I'm showing you that it's very simple, coming up with a simple solution is not easy. And that's where you have to be able to understand all the possible ways to solve the problem to find the simplest one. You understand?
I totally get it. And when I watched how you were going into the XPath to grab the selectors, I had tried to do something similar in the old version of Search Console. And of course, I'm sitting there with the inspector tool and I'm like, shit, there's no classes, there's no IDs.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's what I wanted to dive in.
I was so pissed.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to dive in because, what is the advantage of that, right? So the advantage is, this file shouldn't be there. It's the wrong one. Is that all this stuff that I was talking about is the difference between having a selector that looks like this. So look at this selector. You understand? Look at this crazy selector to get the referring page, scroll date. Yeah. Look at this crazy selector.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh my God.
And I had to come up with two versions for, if the page is not indexed, it's one, if it's indexed, it's another. that was what I could come up quickly just to put together the article. But now that I had a little bit more time to put together the tool, look how I replaced this referring page crazy bulk selector. This is the version of the referring page.
Yeah.
That's it. You understand?
Yep.
Beautiful and simple, right? So that's what I was talking about, that all this stuff about the XPath and all that stuff that I mentioned allowed me to simplify and make a simpler, shorter selector, easier to read, easier to understand, but also something I don't have to be changing all the time, because it's going to be it's going to be harder to come up, for the page to change so that it will break, because it's anchored in the text and the description of the page.
Hamlet, when you came up with these XPath selectors, were you using Chrome DevTools? Like, what was your process for finding them and testing them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, what you do is it's very simple. You say, okay, I want to grab this. You do inspect element, right? Okay, let me put this. I love it in the bottom, right? So you put it here in the bottom. There are two ways you can test the XPath. You can do a search, right? Let's do this one, the referring page, right? I can just take this and do a search in the elements. And you see, if you see, Chrome would say that you can actually type an XPath. So look at this, boom.
Wow.
Very cool.
You see? So
I didn't
basically,
know you could do it by XPath.
Exactly. Yeah, but if you look at what I did is I identify the father, right? Mm-hmm. And then I say, okay, how do I grab the other element? I need this, right? Yeah. I'm anchoring on this. So I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head up to the father, right? Which is what I did here. I said, okay, I'm going to get the parent. Okay? Look at this. I went to the parent, and now that I started here, went to the parent, and now let me drive down again, but I'm going to go to the second element.
Yep.
You see that?
Yep.
So basically, you can build this stuff this way. You say, you grab whatever you want, and you say, let me step back one step up, right? It can be a parent, it can be a sibling, and then you say, okay, I'm going to, now that I went back up, I'm going to go down one step. Super simple. And now I have the other element that I want.
Okay. I want to dive into a little bit about how your brain works, if that's okay,
sure.
And get out of the code a little bit.
Okay.
And specifically, I want to know how you combine the concept of agile with automation. And we talked about this yesterday, about what an agile process looks like, how you have a hypothesis, you then execute, you then have a feedback loop, and then the whole cycle starts over again. And we talked a little bit about the feedback loop as the spot
where
you can automate. Can you go deep on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I apply agile, in pretty much everything I do. So when I think about agile, right, and I'm glad that Renee is joining us because we're working on a fantastic white paper on agile SEO. She's really passionate about it, and I think it's going to be a great white paper that we're putting together on that. So basically, agile is about flexibility, transparency, right, and accelerating results. So for me, the feedback loop is the most critical and the most important thing in anything that you do. Having a feedback loop is super critical. So it's so critical that for me, for example, there are things that I don't do. For example, you don't see me speaking at a lot of conferences or applying to or chasing investors or doing a bunch of stuff that a lot of people think they take for granted. And it's not that I'm concerned about getting rejected. Is that if you reject me and you don't tell me why, for me it's a waste of time. Putting a lot of time in doing something that if I fail, I don't even know why I fail. For me, putting that time I just waste it. Because if I spend my time on something that I know why I failed, or at least I have a sense of what I failed, then when I try the next time, I know what to avoid. I know where to improve. And that's the same decision that I make in everything that I do, right? When I'm going to implement something, SEO, I need to know upfront what metrics I'm going to use to learn whether I'm successful or not. Because just trying things because somebody says that that's smart and that's great, some people might be fine doing that. For me, I don't want to be doing stuff that I don't know why it didn't work or why it worked, because I can't learn to apply that to other things if that's the case. So I'm always optimizing for learning. I'm always optimizing for everything. You're gonna have hundreds failures for every success, but every failure have to show you things that you shouldn't be doing. If you don't have that feedback loop, you're wasted. So why Agile? We spend a lot of time as SEOs with spending months going through a bulk audit, going through a lot of stuff, doing a lot of recommendations, where the feedback loop is delayed by months. So you have to wait, for the audit to be done, for the recommendation, months to learn what works, and you won't even know if you were successful of all the stuff that you recommended, what made the difference. So that's why I love the idea of being able to experiment quickly, learn from every incremental change that you make. Either when you're writing, when you're writing software, when you're implementing SEO recommendations. That's everything around how we operate. I want to know from everything that I want to do. I want to know immediately. I want the feedback. If it failed, I want to know. Okay, it failed because of this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So can you share? So there's two things that's going to lead us into your tool. And for those of you who are listening, please know this is not a paid thing or anything. It's just Hamlet shared the tool, and I was blown away with what RankSense can do. So I thought it was worth sharing it. But can you get us into the KPIs that you like to focus on as you're experimenting, and what matter as like true north KPIs for you and when you're doing SEO, and which ones? And I know rankings are just vanity, but which ones do you really hone in on, and which ones are garbage?
Yeah, so I'm going to share an article that I wrote for. It's very simple because, as I said, we're performance driven. So these are the 4 key KPIs that we track for in SEO for performance. These are levers. So rankings is important, and clients are going to be asking about rankings. You have to report them. But I like to look at metrics that I have control. I like to look at levers that I can pull, and I know, this metric, I know how to improve it. And this is very simple. I look at 4 metrics, search impressions, right? Click-through rate, sales conversion rate, and average order value, which is very similar to the metrics that if you're managing paid search, those are typically the same metrics that you track. I don't see paid search teams, tracking the position of the ads as a KPI that they're tracking, because they're not measured by that. They're measuring by this revenue and sales, which is the typical case with us as well. So search impressions are technical KPIs, right? How do you decide to get more search impressions? You get more pages to get effectively indexed. You get more pages showing up in the organic search results. That's how you get more search impressions. So all these technical duplicate content consolidation, all this stuff that you're doing is going to lead to more pages showing up in the first place in the organic listings, or ranking higher in the organic listings, because you're improving their reputation, you're consolidating duplicate content. So that's a bulk of the lift that we accomplish for clients with a lot of pages. That's what they see, right? And then after you do that, you address the technical changes. You have the other lever, which is the click-through rate. How compelling the search snippets are. Are you presenting the right messaging in the search snippets? And that's another thing that we do. We do a lot of A/B testing to find the most effective and personalized messaging. And similarly, the conversion rate is also making sure that the quality of the traffic is high, that you're sending really relevant content, relevant traffic to the pages. And there is also related to the snippets and how accurate the information you're providing, in the search results and when they land on the pages. It's similar with the average order value, right? Which is more related to incentivizing people that place large orders to come to the site. But those are the key KPIs with our clients that we have ongoing consulting relationships aside of the software. We have this quadrant where we try to have a few projects on each one of these key KPIs that we say, okay, we're doing these projects to affect this KPI. We have doing all these other projects that are going to affect this other KPI, and so on and so forth, so that we know up front how we're going to measure success and how we're going to learn from it.
I think it's super cool, and it really mirrors how we focus on driving SEO at our agency. Again, it's like that Occam's razor approach. I know there's more layers and there's more data that you're looking at, but as long as you can focus on a few key things that you know are going to drive results, then you get the lifts that you're looking for, right?
Yeah. This is a high-level, top-level overview. We dive in granularly because, as I said, I like to first, see the higher picture, the bigger picture, understand how we're going to drive things, and then we drill down to probably have a few dozen KPIs that we track granularly from each one of this, and that we can use them for different uses. But we try not to overcomplicate things, and so that we don't miss the forest for the trees, to say that.
I was just checking out the time. We don't have a ton left. Do you want to get into the tool to show? I think the coolest piece is the
Sure.
fact that you can. Remember, you were showing me all the stuff about tagging and CSV imports. I thought that was just off the hook.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
explain so people, because I don't think everybody understands like how it works and how it interacts with Cloudflare, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, this is our app in Cloudflare. So it has a component which is a real-time monitoring. But the main thing is that we can patch problems quickly in Cloudflare. We have three main use cases, which is anytime that you need to implement changes quickly, that's the use case for our app. If you need something to happen fast, because it's an urgent problem that can wait because if it's a mistake or a problem that is gonna cause you to lose traffic, we want to make sure that you have our app so that with a few clicks, you patch the problem. You get the alert about the problem and you can patch it. The other thing is when you have this capability that you can make changes without having to make code changes in your CMS, you have the ability to learn from your changes. So that's what I think is the second, what you're mentioning, the second exciting part of what we're doing is not just that you have the ability to make changes fast, make them incrementally in an agile way, but also that you can learn from them, that you have this feedback loop that what you're changing is going to be effective, so that if you have 100 recommendations, you test them first in Cloudflare, learn from them, and then you can actually, when you have your IT team implement them, you say, hey, look, before I was going to give you these 100 things to do. Now you only need to do these 20 because I vetted them with this RankSense tool in Cloudflare, and only these ones made a difference. And we do this with tagging. So essentially, the way it works is our app, you can integrate it with Google Drive. You can get notifications in Slack about problems. But in Google Drive, what you get sheets. You can have these, if you're familiar with Google Shopping, you have these feeds where you can make these changes. You can import feeds into Google Shopping to update the ads. So we have a similar thing for the SEO tags. So you can create these feeds in Google Sheets with the changes that you want, the titles, descriptions, H1s, canonicals, whatever changes, robots.txt, and you can import these changes into our app. But more importantly than importing the changes via the feeds, right, is that you can tag the changes. You tag all these feeds, you organize them around tags. You say, okay, these changes are designed to address duplicate content. That's the problem. And the solution is, we are, consolidating duplicate content with canonicals or redirects. And this is the pages that are affected, the products, the categories, whatever. Now that you import that change into our tool, and make the changes quickly in Cloudflare without having to make the code changes in the back end, you can learn from the impact of the changes, and you see what are the impact of the different tags. You understand what were the changes that made the difference. So I think that's where the feedback loop that I was talking about before.
And a couple things. So you can track the changes. You can then push changes to the dev team, and you can also. We were talking on Twitter earlier today about how the changes persist or don't, and where they are in relation to the user and the cache. Can you go into that? Because I've gotten that question a couple of times.
Yeah, and thank you for the question. I added a frequently asked question to the page, so that that answer will be there in the update when they add it. So basically, the way that the app works is we make the changes on the fly. So any changes on your back end are going to be reflected immediately. Because we're patching the page on the fly, and we touch the page before it hits the cache in Cloudflare, right? So if you make changes in the origin server, they're going to be reflected on the app. So our changes persist because they are done on the fly all the time on the pages.
And can you go into the bot monitoring? Because I thought that was super cool for people who don't have access to their log files.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So basically, the way that our monitoring works is that we track over 2,400 different crawlers that are already visiting your site. So a lot of times you don't know that you have all these crawlers coming to your site because you only see the visitors in Google Analytics. And in Search Console, you only see Googlebot. So we track, 2,400 different crawlers that come to your site to grab different information. And they're just using your bandwidth, but they're not doing anything. They're not giving you anything for it. So we're essentially putting them to work for you, because when they come to your site, we're tracking them with, we're doing real-time log analysis. And when they're coming and visiting your site, as they're visiting the site, we're doing the auditing of the pages to find, urgent problems, which we can report here. And this is a crawler analytics that you're seeing here. For example, if I want to see only Googlebot, right? See if you see that. You see Screaming Frog here. We track all these different bots, right? This will be only the requests from Googlebot. So you can see what pages it's visiting, what problems Googlebot is seeing, right? So you have these crawler statistics, and that gives us several advantages, which is we're auditing. We don't have to have a crawler infrastructure to audit the sites in real and ongoing, because we're just capturing the crawls already happening. And we also can know when Google picks up changes. So when we release a change and we make the change, we can tell when Google picked it up, which is important when we're analyzing the results of the changes as well, or Bing or whatever search engine is coming into the site. So we track, and we track also search clicks, which is clicks from the different search engines. We can do all this without having integrations to Analytics or Search Console, because we need to do this in real time. So that's what I didn't want to be reliant on integrations to get this information that is so critical.
And you had told me about the KPIs that you're paying attention to when you're using this tool and what you're not looking at all. Like, what does this enable the SEO to, how does it enable them to simplify their workflow?
So the main KPIs that we track is what pages are getting clicked from search engines and which pages are not getting clicked. That's what you're seeing here.
Mhm.
because we're saying if you have 1,000 pages and you're seeing, like in this case, a lot of them are not getting clicked, that's an obvious opportunity because you want to learn why those pages are not getting clicked, if they should be clicked,
Mhm.
right? As I said, we're purposely keeping the tools super simple. And you see that this advanced stuff about importing tools for SEOs is actually in the settings, because we want people that don't even have knowledge about SEO to be able to use this. So this also has a wizard where they can actually, follow steps, preview changes and stuff like that and apply them by themselves. But we're limiting this to only a few handful, I mean, about 15, 25 issues that we're not going to move away from that. There are other tools that do a fantastic job, but just for auditing. For us, our focus is implementation, so that's where that's our vision for this tool. Does that answer your question? I think somebody
Yeah,
might have some
super cool.
questions in the chat.
Yeah, I thought it blew me away.
Thank you.
So I know we're at our hour. We had some technical difficulties on the front end, and I think we had a little bit of issues with how the recording went. So
Okay.
don't kill me now, kill me later. We got
Okay.
so I don't know what your time's like. How are you, Hamlet?
I can have a few more minutes if you need.
Okay.
I see that there is some questions, something in the chat. You think?
Yeah, I think we got through them all. I've been asking. They were asking like about Pippeteer. They wanted someone else asked about the crawl limit in terms of submissions for the inspect tool.
Okay.
Can you share with us? I love asking this question. What keeps you up at night?
Oh yeah. So for me, the main concern that I have is the success of my clients. So what keeps me up at night is whether our clients are getting results, whether we're getting the value, whether I and that's one of the drivers to know what works in a sense, because I want to know when things stop working. If they stop working and we're recommending stuff that doesn't make a difference for clients, we lose them. It's as simple as that. We have clients with relationships that span 6 years or more, and we're a young company, and it's because we have to be consistently driving results. So what keeps me up at night is how can I be always innovating and always coming up with new stuff that can always, even if stuff has stopped working, how do I come up with new stuff that delivers results? Because nothing works forever, right? Things will stop working eventually. So you want to have this ability, and that's in curiosity to be able. How do I keep my pipeline of ideas of things that can potentially work full? That's what keeps me up at night. How I can keep innovating and making sure that I can come up with stuff that can continue to drive value for my clients, and at the same time, it keeps me challenged and keeps me doing interesting stuff as well.
Two things. What's the name of the Python drag and drop GUI builder?
So it's called, let me.
And while you're looking that up, I also want you to go into the Neil Patel Twitter tool that you Tech SEO Boost.
You're bad, right?
We got to talk about that. You got to share because that was off the hook. That was so funny.
Yeah, this is the Qt Designer. This is what I use.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can download this one. It's a Qt Builder. I have to actually go to the Search Engine Watch article to get the link. I just released part 3. So this was a lot of fun, right? So yeah, let me talk a little bit about this one. So this is, so if you haven't checked this article series for Search Engine Watch, which is essentially part based on a talk that I gave at Tech SEO Boost last year, with more involved. So this notebook, one of the things that I finished that talk was talking about how I wrote a neural network to try to figure out what Neil Patel's response will be to to Troy Hunt. So this is the article. So make sure that you can share the link here. So I can explain a little bit about recurrent neural networks. Basically, this is a neural network that learns to predict the next character. So this is they call it an unsupervised training machine learning technique. So this is a recurrent neural network. There is a more powerful approach now using transformers, but basically it learns dependencies over time. So when you're writing natural language, what you said before, it matters. So the order of the words matters. So that was one of the first successful neural network implementations that can keep the logic, keep the sequence of the phrasing of the text. So it memorizes the text. So at the end of the day, so that you understand, deep learning machines, they only see numbers. They're not really seeing pictures. They're not seeing voice. They're not seeing images. They only see numbers. So for them, everything is just numbers. So all these words, what you're doing is you're turning a block of text into a dictionary where you say, okay, I have 10,000 words in this dictionary. For the machine, it's only 1 to 10,000. So they have an index from 1 to 10,000. They don't know anything about the text. They only know all these numbers are what they mean, and they're trying to find connections between them and relationships. So this recurrent neural network, what it's doing is finding numerical sequences that are, similar or related, and they say, okay, if I have this sequence of numbers, the computer is trying to guess and try to predict what's going to be the next one. So it's trying to predict what is the next one. So for that type of training exercise, you don't need labeled data. You don't need to manually label it. So to learn this, it can be done unsupervised. So in this case, what I did, it's translating that is, I pulled tweets. This is something that I think Brittany did also a fantastic job at a talk at Search Love, doing something with Rand Fishkin and I think another person generating tweets for him. And it's a lot of fun because you download the tweets, generate this corpus for both people, and you understand you have the tweets. I think on this notebook I don't have the output, but I share it on the slides of the presentation. It came up with some really funny. It came up from some really funny headlines. But basically, when you see the headlines, the Twitter generator, you can see that that's the kind of writing that Neil Patel has. He's like the hyperbole, yeah, you're gonna get money fast, and all this stuff, is all this clickbaity type of writing in his tweets. It was a lot of fun, mixed up with Troy Hunt, which is more passive. It made for a really fun exercise, so that was really good.
So, as a tangential question, do you see natural language generation taking off within the next few years when it comes to SEO and content creation?
You're talking about years. I'm hoping to write some text generation pitches. I just haven't had time for talks this year. So you're talking about months. You understand? You're not talking about years. You're talking about months. Yeah, no, this is moving at a crazy pace. You understand? This is moving at a crazy pace. It's incredible the stuff you can do right now. Last year, you'll see a lot of the stuff and all the mistakes the computer makes. You can make fun of it, but the thing is that the computing power is increasing at such an exponential rate. And let me tell you what is driving this. What is driving this is, and that's one of the things that I want to see in our SEO community, the AI, the deep learning community. If you think that we share, because I love our community because everybody's sharing, everybody's competing who shares the most. And it's a fantastic community because we are really friendly. We're sharing, and we're with competitors, there's no sense of, oh, I'm going to hide this stuff. It's a fantastic community. The AI community is even nuts. It's even crazier. You understand? These guys are kind of like in a competition to who comes up with the crazy stuff. So you see that right now everybody's talking about a transformer. Give it like a few weeks, The transformers are the greatest things right now, right? Give it a few weeks, not even months. Something even better is going to come up soon, because they're always in this competition who can do better. And the reason why they can do better is because they're measuring. They have metrics that they can measure measure them against. And they have these competitions in Kaggle and all these different places. So it's even hard to keep up, with all the papers that are coming up, all this stuff and it's fascinating because you get even more people joining the community, and they're very welcoming, and the tools are making them better, making them simpler, making them more accessible. Everybody's giving away training and all this information, and all these companies are throwing away a ton of money. And the cloud providers are very incentivized because people get to use their stuff and spend money in Google Cloud and Amazon and these other places. So they love it. So this stuff is you're talking about months. You're not talking about weeks. You're not talking about years. You're talking about months.
But one thing, so we were talking with an enterprise SEO, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, we implemented natural language generation in our reporting 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, right, Jordan?" And what they found was that after 5 months, all the reports looked super stale, and they were feeling concerned that the clients were going to get them and be like, "What the hell is this? This looks the same as last month," because it's like spitting out very similar language to digest the same metrics and dimensions.
Yeah, but you're talking about if they were doing natural language 2 years, they were using machine learning. They were not even using deep learning. They were not using any of the latest stuff.
Oh.
I want you to go and watch the recording with IBM demonstration of the debate that IBM. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. You understand? I tell you right now, there is no way that now you have the ability to have a computer rephrase the same text in 100 different ways. There is a methodology for that, and I can dive in. I don't want to get into too technical because I don't want to, but basically to explain how you can take the same concept and generate completely different text in 100 different ways is that the text, as I said, is only numbers. And when the text generation systems, what they use a distribution. So essentially the deep learning algorithm is not learning a mapping between numbers, it's learning a distribution. So a distribution means that it's a range of numbers. So every slot in the phrase is a range of numbers. It's learning a distribution, and when you're generating the text, you're sampling from the distribution, and the sampling is random. So you do a random sampling from the distribution every time you're going to generate different text. So just to get it into more detail on how it works. You understand? So I tell you,
shared some stuff that Black Hats would love. Oh yeah, I want to spin this.
That's something that is already available. That's something that you can do, and you can make the text, look, reasonable, because the distribution of the text is what controls that the output is accurate. You've probably seen the deep fakes. Right, the generative adversarial network, same concept. The way that these systems work is that they are generating distribution. So that face is numbers. It's a distribution of numbers. So when you have the generator and the discriminator competing against each other at the same time, what they're really learning is a distribution that will win the competition between the two, that will fake. Essentially, the discriminator. The generator is trying to fool the discriminator, and the discriminator, is trying to make sure that the generator is not fooling him. And they're generating a distribution. You can take an image, turn it into numbers, and that's a distribution. And because they sample from the same distribution, the faces look similar to somebody that you have seen because they take celebrities for them, but it's not exactly the same because they change elements of that. That is the same stuff that is doing with the GANs on image generation and pictures that is so credible right now. Imagine the same thing can happen. It's happening already.
So how do we stay relevant for 10 years? We humans who need to have work till we retire.
Now you got to the question of why I am pushing people to learn Python. You understand? Yeah. If you want to stay relevant, you want to be the one building the robots. You want to be the one building the machines.
Yeah.
You understand? You don't want the
machine. The Hangout.
Exactly. You don't want the machines to take over your job, and you're not even prepared. You want to be the one learning how the machines work, how to build them, how to change them, because you are going to be valuable all the time because you bring something that the machines can bring. So that's what I'm changing, and I'm pushing everybody to learn how to code and how to do all this stuff, because tomorrow you don't want to be waking up, oh yeah, I'm automated out of a job. No, I am the one writing the automation to get me out of the job, because I'm a lot more efficient with this tool that I build and all these tools that I can be building on the company. I'm always going to be valuable.
So with that being said, what's your process or framework for automating tasks?
So my process is very simple. I don't want to be wasting time automating stuff that doesn't make a difference. It's as simple as that. As Hamlet, the engineer, will love that. I could love just writing stuff just for the fun of it, because I get fun out of it. But I'm the business person, and I'm not going to be wasting my time doing something that, it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to work. So my process starts with manually figuring out things. So I spend the time to learn things manually. I don't have to be talking to my clients. I have account managers, but I spend the time, if I have it, when I have my time, and I sit on the calls, interact with my clients, talk to them, learn about their problems and everything. I get involved in the problems. I don't need to be writing code. I have developers. I go in and I write the code myself. Not for my product, most of it is just my developers, but I like to figure out stuff. That's the code that I write. I have a question. I want to figure out something, or somebody has a question. Okay, let me write a piece of code and figure it out. I do that because I want to figure out something that is valuable. So I start with the problem. So either I learn it from a client, or somebody in Twitter told me about something, or you told me about this other stuff. So I like to start with things that people care about, thinking that if I solve it, it's going to lead to a good outcome. So that's the first step. And I do it manually first. Okay, figure it out manually. It's valuable. I see that it works. Now, let me go to the good stuff. So for me, the programming is kind of like, you have the lunch, now you need the dessert, right? So I eat the lunch and I'm saving me the dessert at the end. I say, okay, going through having my lunch, but now I'm going to get to the good stuff, the dessert, the part that I'm going to actually enjoy. Okay, now I have the process. I know what I need to automate. I know what I'm going to do. For example, for this tool, I put a simple outline. Okay, I figured out, here's the outline and the outline it changes because as you start coding, you start changing things. But at least it gives me a framework of what are the things that I need to learn. A lot of the times when I'm automating things, I don't even know how to do 80% of what I need to do at the end. So a lot of the stuff is, I have the plan, I know what I need to do. And a lot of things when I'm stuck, just go to Stack Overflow and Google it. I get an error, go to Stack Overflow or Google the error and open a bunch of tabs of different ideas how to solve the error. And then I go through them and try them one at a time, one idea after the other. Okay, I figure out, this one works. And that's the process until I finish it, get it working.
Do you kind of automate micro tasks, so you're like focusing on every single? That's what Yuri shared with us in our last hangout.
What do you mean with micro tasks? What is a micro task for you?
So let's say his challenge was, how do I figure out how to automate 30,000 ad campaigns a month? How do I get this done? And he figured out every step in creating an ad campaign, and then wrote code to follow all the decision trees in order to solve the problem of how to automate the campaign process, both the generation and the management process. And they definitely are on top of it in terms of like managing pieces of the flow, but they've figured out how to automate it because they looked at every step that's necessary to achieve whatever the task is.
Yeah, so it's similar, but yeah, so I like to start automating simple things. So because same concept that I talked before, if I start an ambitious automation project that is going to take me a lot of time and effort, and at the end I don't know if I'm going to be successful or if it's going to be worth it, even if I'm successful, right? I start breaking it down and say, oh yeah, I want to climb that mountain, but before I even do that, let me do this singles thing. Let me see if I'm successful with this. Okay, I got it. I got that. Okay, now let me get to the next step. I don't plan out an ambitious project like that. I used to do that, but I realized that it's not a good approach. I just say, okay, let me take it day by day, see what I can do now with the resource. And you know why is that as well? Because one of the things that I've learned is that even if you have an ambitious goal, if you start taking it in parts and breaking and close and solving those parts first, at the end, right, in the middle, you're probably going to find a better way to do something that you did a few steps back. And you say, oh, wow, while I was fixing this, I figured out an even easier way. Let me go back and the step one and change it because this way is a lot better, which is, for example, what happened when I started writing this code. I didn't start with the XPath. I started with the big selectors, you understand? And I did that, and because I was doing it piece by piece, when I figured out the XPath, I said, wow, this is better. Let me go back and replace it and change it to do this approach.
Do you get giddy?
Absolutely.
Yeah, same for me. My wife hears awkward cackling from the distance.
Yeah, no, my wife, she sometimes she kicked me out of the bed because sometimes she hears me laughing so much. Why are you laughing? At 1 a.m. I'm laughing like crazy, and she's like, "What are you laughing about?" She kicks me out. So yeah,
Cool.
This is a lot of fun.
Cool.
Great.
Awesome. Well, I think this seems like a really good time to kind of tie it up. Is there more stuff you want to jump into, Hamlet? This was really killer. I'm really glad we got to stay on so long.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I need to get some other stuff done. So,
Sure.
so I really appreciate the time, guys.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing you guys building the audience. It's fantastic. I'm glad you're pushing, being forward thinking about, people leveraging automation, not waiting for the automation taking over, and cut you with your pants down. And yeah, this is really cool stuff.
Good.
So thank you for giving me a window to share my message about Python and getting cool stuff built.
Super. It's amazing.
I was just gonna say, and Hamlet, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn, right? Hamlet Batista, Twitter /Hamlet Batista all together. Yeah, I get direct message. My direct messages are open as well, so you feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I really want you guys to give it a try with the repo that I share, and yeah, put it to use. Hit me up with any problems that you find, and yeah, so let's yeah, love
It's
to stay
amazing
connected.
stuff. So
Yeah.
As we tie everything up, just for folks who are still in the meeting, in 2 weeks we have Dana DiTomaso, one of my favorite speakers when I go to conferences. She's just an amazing communicator. She's going to be talking with us about automating reporting. And I think she's going to dive into a bunch of Data Studio stuff and hopefully talk about the difference between monitoring and reporting. So that's going to be on May 3rd. Hamlet, I'd love it to stay in touch.
Absolutely.
I feel like you have so much going on. And
Absolutely.
for everybody who jumped into the Hangout, we really appreciate your time. If you could give us feedback, we'd really appreciate it. And we just launched a website that's still kind of lurching forward. It's agencyautomators.com. And we're going to post all of our old shows there and also all of our upcoming shows so that you'll see kind of who's coming up and you can catch up with any old episodes. And anything else, guys?
I think that's it. Hamlet, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Likewise.
guys.
Have a good one. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great day.
You too.